Well, we've made it to the end of this very crazy semester. So the final exam will be available starting tomorrow, Thursday, and I will have it up until probably Sunday. Um, so you can take it at your leisure. Okay, you're going to take it in D2L. I will have instructions on D2L about how to take it. It is 25 multiple choice questions from the entire semester. You do have a practice quiz that is available in D2L with the instructions on how to take that. Now, please keep in mind, there is some stuff from Chapter 5 that we did not go over, okay? What you need to know, I'm about to show you, okay? So if you recognize some of the questions and you're like, I have no clue, that's because we didn't have enough time to cover it, okay? In my opinion, a lot of Chapter 5 it's kind of unnecessary. It has a lot of imaginary numbers. And so typically if I am running short on time, I omit some of that material. Okay, so I'm going to show you what you need to know. Okay, there's a couple of questions I'm going to show you. Okay, the first type of question is going to be pretty straightforward. It's something you should probably already know how to do. It's just the wording is a little strange. Okay, and then the second question will be an example with the imaginary numbers. Okay, so what I'm saying is, if you have looked at that that review for the final, there is stuff that you probably don't know how to do, but don't be alarmed. Okay, you are totally prepared for this final. Okay, completely. Okay. All right, so like I said, there's just a couple of questions I'm going to show you out of sections 5.2 and 5.3. Okay, and then you will be set. Okay. All right, so here is the first question, okay? It says, use the factor theorem to determine whether x minus c is a factor of f of x, okay? So there's two examples. There's example A and example B here, okay? So what this is, okay, if you notice, we're dealing with polynomials, okay? So this first one is a degree 3 polynomial. Down here, this is a degree 6 polynomial, okay? What you do in section 5.2 is you learn how to factor polynomials of higher degree, okay? The factoring can get pretty complicated, okay? But that is what you learn how to do in section 5.2, to completely factor a polynomial of a higher degree, okay? We don't have the time to go into that, okay? All this question is asking you, okay, so like we'll concentrate on this first example, okay? Here's your function, okay? If you were dealing with the polynomial if you were dealing with the polynomial 4x cubed minus 3x squared minus 8x plus 4, okay? If you were to factor it, then would x minus 2 be one of the factors, okay? That is all this question is asking you. It is not asking you to do the factorization, okay? It's just asking you, if you were to factor this polynomial completely, would x minus 2 be one of the factors, okay? So let's think back to section 5.1, okay? What did we learn in section 5.1? Well, we concentrated a lot on zeros, okay? So remember zeros, that's a fancy name for x-intercepts. Okay, so let's think about this, okay? If what we learned in section 5.1 is if x minus 2 is a factor, so if x minus 2 is a factor, then, okay, you would take your factor and you set it equal to 0 and you solve, you would get x equals 2. Then that means if x minus 2 is a factor, then x equals 2 is a 0. Okay, so remember 0 is a fancy name for x-intercept. Okay, so that's what this is saying. Okay, if this is a factor, okay, if this is part of the factorization, then x minus 2 must be a 0 or an x-intercept. Okay, so remember, if you have a function with an x-intercept at 2, okay, whatever your function looks like, I'm not graphing this out, but if you have a function with an x-intercept at 2, okay, it would look like this, okay? Meaning, if you took that x value 2 and you plugged it into the function, you should get 0 because this point right here is 2, 0, okay? So all we have to do to check to see if 2 is an x-intercept is plug it into the function. If it's an x-intercept, then our output should be 0. Okay, so let's try it. Okay, so we're going to find f of 2. Okay, so f of 2 is going to be 4. I'm just going to the function and I'm plugging it in. 4 times 2 cubed minus 3 times 2 cubed minus 8 times 2 plus 4. Okay, so all I'm going to do is plug that into my calculator and see what I get. Okay, so let's see here. I'm just going to plug that in. Okay, hopefully you can see that. So this is going to be 4 times 2 cubed minus 3 times 2. Oops, I made a mistake here. This should be squared. Sorry. Okay, so 3 times 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 4. Okay, all right, so when we plug it in, okay, we got 8 is the answer. Okay, so that means that, you know, the point 28 is on the graph of this function, of this polynomial. Okay, so if we plugged in 2, we did not get 0. Okay, so that means 2 is not a 0. X equals 2 is not a 0 or an x-intercept, which in turn means that x minus 2 is not part of the factorization. Okay, so the answer would be no here. It is simply a yes or no question. Okay, so, and you can check yourself on your calculator. Okay, you can graph this function. Okay, you can put this in the calculator. You can do 4x cubed minus 3x squared minus 8x plus 4. Okay, remember, have your window set to the negative 10 to 10 in all directions. Okay, take a look at this polynomial. Okay, so we're trying to see if 2x equals 2 is a 0 or an x-intercept. Okay, so remember what I taught you. You can do second calculate. Second calculate. Okay, it brings up this menu. Okay, hello, I need this thing to get focused. Hang on. And I don't know how much you've paid attention to this menu, but option 2 is for zeros, for x-intercepts. Okay, so if I hit that, if I hit option 2, okay, it's going to ask you some questions. Okay, we're interested probably in this x-intercept over here. It's the closest one to 2. Okay, so it wants you to give you, it wants to give you you to pick a spot to the left of this little intercept right there. So I'm going to move the cursor to that and hit enter. And then it wants something to the right of it. So I'm just going to move up here, hit enter. For guess, just hit enter. And it's going to land on that x-intercept. Okay, and you can see the x-intercept is not 2. It's close. It's like 1.6 something, but it's not actually 2. Okay, so that's why, since 2 is not an x-intercept, that means x minus 2 is not a factor. Okay, again, it's just a yes or no question. Okay, let's try one more. Okay, so let's look at the 6th degree polynomial that I have. Okay, so this is 3x to the 6th plus 82x to the 3rd plus 27. That's the polynomial. And we want to know if we did factor this guy in its entirety, okay, would x plus 3 be a factor? Okay, so again, if x plus 3 is a factor, then what would be the x-intercept? Well, we'd have to take the factor, set it equal to 0, and solve. Okay, so x minus 3 would be the 0 or the x-intercept. Okay, so all we need to do, okay, just kind of visualize what's going on here. Okay, whatever your polynomial function looks like, okay, you're interested in -3, that x value. Okay, so we want to know if it's an intercept, okay, an x-intercept. So again, this would be the point. If it is, it would be the point -3, 0. X-intercepts have a y-coordinate of 0. We learned that on day 1. Okay, so all we need to do to check this is plug in -3 for x and see if we get 0 as the result. If we do, then we know it's an x-intercept. okay? And so then x plus 3 would be the factor, okay? So let's check it out. Okay, we're going to plug negative 3 into the function. So we're going to get 3 times negative 3 to the 6th power plus 82 times negative 6 to the 3rd power plus 27. Okay, all right, we're going to plug it in, okay, on our calculator, see what we get. All right, so we're going to get 3 times, be careful here, negative 3 has to be raised to the 6th power, okay? That entire thing, negative 3 has to be raised to the 6th power, so you need the negative inside the parentheses, okay? Plus 82 times negative 3 to the 3rd power plus 27. That's how you would plug it in, okay? So then hit enter, you're going to get 0, okay? So that tells me, yes, negative 3 is an x-intercept. Okay, so since that happened, okay, that means the point negative 3, 0 is on the graph of the polynomial, whatever it looks like, okay? And so since negative 3 is a 0 or an x-intercept, that means if you factored this guy, then in turn, if you went backwards, x plus 3 would be a factor, okay? So the answer here would be yes, okay? And like I said, we don't know how to factor this. We didn't get into the logistics of doing that, okay? But just trust me, if you were to factor this guy, x plus 3 would be in the factorization, okay? If you look at the directions, it mentions something called the factor theorem. Do not worry about what that says, okay? This is all you have to do to answer this type of question, okay? All right, let's look at the last example.